The first sign that Nam Teo was dying was not the fall. It was the way his hand trembled before he reached for his father's sleeve. Nam Ryan noticed it too late. The hearing had already drained 3 hours from everyone inside Incheon International Justice Hall. The courthouse was built for powerful criminals who preferred expensive language to confession. Towering glass walls, white marble floors, gold architectural lines, silent elevators, private security corridors, and courtrooms sealed behind polished wood doors. Outside, reporters waited behind barricades. Inside, men who had buried fortunes behind legitimate companies pretended to respect the law. Ryan sat at the defense table in a black Italian suit, silver hair combed back, face calm enough to frighten people who mistook stillness for mercy. In his late 50s, he looked less like a man aging and more like a blade that had learned patience. Beside him sat his son, Teo, 22 years old.
Pale, proud,
Too thin beneath his tailored suit. He kept adjusting his left cuff, hiding the white hospital wristband underneath. Ryan had seen it that morning and said nothing, because Teo had answered before being asked. "I'm fine, father." The lie was not convincing, but Teo had inherited Ryan's worst habit. He treated weakness like an insult. Across the courtroom, Nam Jae-taek watched them both. Ryan's younger brother had the elegant face of a respectable man and the eyes of someone counting exits. He sat behind the family attorneys with his hands folded, expression sorrowful for the judge, loyal for the cameras, poisonous for everyone else. The hearing concerned illegal medical logistics transfers tied to Haewon Crown Group, false shipping codes, altered hospital supply records, private security movement hidden beneath emergency transport authorizations. Ryan knew his empire was not clean. He had never pretended otherwise. But this charge had been built with someone else's hands. Someone inside the family. Attorney Seo Ri stood with a folder at the podium, sharp in a dark green suit, her voice precise. "Your Honor, the defense calls Nam Teo." A murmur moved through the courtroom. Jae-taek leaned forward. Teo rose slowly. Ryan looked at him. "You can still wait." Teo did not meet his eyes.
No.
"I should have spoken earlier." That sentence unsettled Ryan more than the wristband. Teo walked to the witness stand with controlled steps. Too controlled. A young man performing strength for a room full of predators. Attorney Seo approached him gently. "Mr. Nam, did you review the internal medical logistics documents marked under transfer batch H71? "Yes." "And did you recognize the authorization chain?" Teo's gaze moved toward his uncle. "Yes." Jae-taek's face remained still. Attorney Seo turned one page. "Please tell the court whose proxy approval appeared beneath the transfer request."
Taius Valovid.
His fingers curled around the edge of the witness stand. "My uncle's." The courtroom sharpened. Jae-taek stood. "Objection. The witness is medically compromised and clearly confused." Attorney Seo did not look at him. "He has not finished." The judge allowed the testimony to continue.
Tayo inhaled.
The proxy authorization was hidden under a secondary logistics code. I saw the original routing before the file was replaced. It was linked to Nam Jae-taek's office. Jae-taek's expression changed by a fraction. Only Ryan saw it. Then the court broke for recess. The judge's gavel struck once. People stood. Lawyers gathered files. Bodyguards adjusted formation around Ryan and Teo as they moved into the emergency lobby, where marble columns rose toward a glass ceiling flooded with warm afternoon light. The lobby was loud. Reporters calling from beyond the security line. Courthouse staff speaking into radios. Lawyers whispering rapidly. Witnesses pretending not to stare. Teo took 3 steps beside his father. Then stopped. His hand pressed against his chest. Ryan turned.
Tayo.
His son's face had gone gray. "I'm fine," Teo whispered again. Then his knees buckled. The sound of his body hitting the marble silenced the lobby. For half a second, nobody moved. Then everyone moved at once. Bodyguards surged forward. Lawyers screamed. Jae-taek shouted for space in a voice that sounded more frightened than concerned. Courthouse responders pushed through the crowd with medical bags. A doctor knelt, checked Teo quickly. then hesitated when he saw the hospital wristband beneath the cuff. "Was he discharged today?" the doctor asked. No one answered. G.I. Ryan dropped to one knee beside his son, his controlled face breaking for the first time in years. "Teo, look at me." Teo's eyes fluttered. Pain twisted across his face. The lobby became chaos. Then a woman's voice cut through it. "Move back. Give him air." It was not loud. It did not need to be. People turned. A young black woman in navy emergency scrubs and a pristine white clinical coat strode through the crowd with a trauma badge clipped to her chest and a stethoscope around her neck. Her long natural curls were tied into a low professional ponytail. Her face was calm, focused, beautiful in a way that seemed almost out of place amid panic. She knelt beside Teo without asking permission. 2 fingers to his pulse, eyes on his breathing. One glance at his skin, his wristband, the stiffness in his hand. "Do not lift him yet," she said. "Oxygen. Monitor. Clear the crowd. I need his recent discharge information now." A courthouse physician bristled. "Who are you?" She did not look up. "Olamide Sarfo. Emergency nurse practitioner. And if you keep arguing, he dies before the ambulance reaches the gate." The physician went quiet. People obeyed. That was how G.I. Ryan knew she was not pretending. Panic obeyed confidence, when confidence knew what it was doing. She took command with terrifying grace, directing responders, asking rapid questions, keeping Teo conscious with firm, steady words. Her hands did not shake. Her voice did not tremble. She moved like someone trained to make life-and-death decisions while everyone else wasted time being impressed by titles. G.I. Ryan stared at her profile. Olamide. The name struck a locked door inside him.
No. Impossible.
She turned slightly, and the afternoon light caught her eyes. Hazel brown. The same eyes. Older. Sharper. Guarded now. But the same. G.I. Ryan whispered before he could stop himself. "Wami." The woman's hands paused for less than a second. Then she looked up at him. Not with surprise. With memory. Deep, controlled, wounded memory. "Mr. Nam," she said, her voice calm as she pressed the responder's hand into position. "If you want your son alive, tell your men to obey me." G.I. Ryan turned toward his bodyguards. "Do exactly what she says." No one hesitated after that. As Teo was stabilized for emergency transfer, G.I. Ryan remained on one knee beside the son he nearly lost and the daughter he thought had vanished from the world. Across the lobby, Jiang Taek watched Olamide Sarfo with the face of a man seeing a ghost walk into court wearing a medical badge. And for the first time that day, he looked truly afraid. 15 years earlier, Incheon's old ferry district had smelled of salt, diesel, rain, and hunger. That was where Nam G.I. Ryan first found Olamide Sarfo.
He had been younger then.
Harder in obvious ways. More violent with his silences. The kind of man who still believed mercy was something that could be delegated to staff. A winter storm had torn through the port that night, throwing rain sideways against the warehouses and turning the streets into black mirrors. G.I. Ryan had just left a failed negotiation near the customs yard. 2 men had insulted his patience. 1 had lost a tooth. Everyone had learned something. His convoy was ready to leave when he saw movement beneath the ferry stairs.
Small. Too small to be a threat.
His men saw it too. 1 reached for his weapon out of habit. G.I. Ryan raised 1 hand. Light. A flashlight beam cut through the rain. Under the iron stairs, curled around a torn backpack, sat a little black girl in a soaked red sweater. Her knees were drawn to her chest. Her hair was tangled from weather. Her lips were cracked. Her eyes, too large for her thin face, stared at the men without blinking. She looked like she had already learned that fear wasted energy. One of G.I. Ryan's guards muttered, "Homeless child." Another said, "We should call services." The girl flinched at the word services.
You noticed?
He stepped closer and crouched in the rain. "What is your name?" She did not answer. Korean, then English. "Your name." Her voice came out hoarse. "Olamide." The name was careful in her mouth, protected. G.I. Ryan removed his coat and held it toward her. She stared at it suspiciously. He did not move closer. Smart children who had survived danger did not trust kindness that rushed. After a long moment, She reached for the coat. It swallowed her shoulders. "Where is your family?" he asked. Her eyes shifted away. "My mother is gone." "Gone where?" The girl's mouth tightened. "Gone." Later, G.I. Ryan learned the fragments. Her mother had come through Korea chasing work promised by people who collected debts faster than they paid wages. Immigration delays turned into illegal fees. Illegal fees turned into threats. A boarding room. A warehouse job. A fever left untreated. Then a child sleeping near terminals because adults preferred not to see what poverty made inconvenient. One of G.I. Ryan's men stepped closer. "Boss, this is not our matter." G.I. Ryan looked at him. The man immediately stepped back. The girl watched the exchange. G.I. Ryan softened his voice by effort, not instinct. "Do you have another name?" She hesitated. "My mother called me Lami. When she wanted me to stop crying." Something shifted in G.I. Ryan's chest. He had lost his wife 6 months earlier. Cancer, not bullets. A quiet enemy money could not frighten. Since then, his mansion had become a beautiful house full of people pretending grief had a schedule. His son Teo had stopped speaking at dinner. His brother Jae-taek had started speaking too much. And G.I. Ryan had buried himself in work because work at least had enemies he could see. He looked at the child under the stairs, wearing his coat like armor. "Lami," he said, "do you want food?" Her chin lifted with suspicious pride. "I don't steal if someone asks first." "I did not ask if you steal. You looked like you might." For the first time in months, G.I. Ryan nearly smiled. He stood and turned to his men. "She comes with us." One guard hesitated. "Sir, the police." "She comes with us," G.I. Ryan repeated. No one argued twice. The Nam mansion was lit when they arrived. All stone, glass, old wood, and silence. Staff rushed into motion when they saw the soaked child in G.I. Ryan's coat. A housekeeper brought towels. A doctor was called. Warm food appeared. Dry clothes were found. Lami did not cry. Not when the doctor examined her fever. Not when the housekeeper cut away the sleeve of her ruined sweater. Not when someone tried to take the torn backpack from her, and she clutched it so tightly G.I. Ryan ordered them to leave it alone. From the staircase, 12-year-old Nam Teo watched. His face was pale and closed. He had his mother's eyes and his father's pride. "Who is she?"
Teo asked.
G.I. Ryan looked up. "Her name is Olamide." "Why is she here?" "She needs a home tonight." Teo's gaze moved over the coat. The attention, the staff gathered around her. "So she stays?" G.I. Ryan heard the wound beneath the question, but did not know how to answer it gently. "Yes." Behind Teo stood Jae-taek, hands folded, expression calm. "A generous gesture," he said, "but dangerous if misunderstood." G.I. Ryan did not look at him. "Then do not misunderstand it." In the following weeks, generosity became decision. Decision became paperwork. Paperwork became war. Jae-taek argued that bringing a foreign homeless child into the Nam household would invite scandal, legal complications, enemies, and gossip.
Yiriun adopted her anyway.
At the family table, when one elderly relative called Lami a burden, G.I. Ryan placed his chopsticks down so quietly that everyone stopped eating. "The next person who calls her a burden," he said, "will learn what burden feels like." No one said it again in front of him. But households had corners. Children heard what adults swallowed in public. That night, Lami stood in the hallway, wearing clean pajamas too soft for her to trust. G.I. Ryan found her holding a loose button from his old coat, the coat she had worn from the ferry stairs. "It fell off," she said quickly. "I didn't steal it." "I know. I can sew it back." "Keep it." Her fingers closed around the button. "Why?" "So you remember you were not found empty-handed." She frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It will." From the staircase, Teo watched them again, and jealousy, quiet and green, began growing where grief had already made room. Olamide learned the Nam household the way some children learn storms. Which doors opened easily. Which servants smiled only when G.I. Ryan was home. Which relatives called her fortunate with the same tone others used for stray animals rescued from rain. Which rooms grew cold when Teo entered. G.I. Ryan gave her everything a powerful man knew how to give. Tutors.
clothes, doctors,
language lessons, security, a bedroom overlooking the garden, a school where teachers bowed too deeply after reading her surname, a piano instructor she did not ask for, etiquette lessons from a woman who believed posture could erase the street from a child's bones. But he gave these things while moving through war,
court disputes,
port negotiations, security threats, enemies testing borders, men who smiled across restaurant tables and sent knives through delivery doors afterward. He believed protection was love made visible. He believed if Lamy had warm food, guarded gates, education, and his surname, then the child under the ferry stairs had been saved. He did not understand that love also needed witnesses. Lamy tried to become easy to keep. She studied Korean until her accent softened. She bowed correctly. She learned which dishes Teo disliked and avoided taking the last piece. She folded her clothes perfectly. She never asked for expensive things. She apologized before anyone could accuse her. At 13, she won a school science prize and left the certificate on G.I. Ryan's desk. He returned home after midnight, signed 3 emergency documents, and sent a message through a secretary.
Proud of you. Continue.
Lamy slept with the message under her pillow. Teo saw it the next morning. He said nothing for an hour. Then, at lunch, he pushed his bowl away and muttered, "Some people only need to breathe to get praised." Lamy looked down at her plate. "I didn't ask him to say anything. That's your talent."
What?
Looking like you don't ask. The words hurt because they were not shouted. They were almost thoughtful. Jaeyoung-taek fed that hurt with patience. He spoke to Teo when G.I. Ryan was away. "Your father feels guilty," he said one evening as they stood in the family gallery beneath portraits of dead Nam men. "He could not save your mother. So he saved a stranger."
Teo se face hardenet.
"She is not family." Jaeyoung-taek placed one hand on his shoulder. Blood is not the only thing men forget when grief makes them sentimental. With Lamy, Jaeyoung-taek was colder. Never openly cruel. He was too polished for that. He corrected documents, questioned school fees, suggested she avoid public family events because attention can be dangerous, reminded staff that not all household matters needed to be shared with an adopted child. Once, when she was 15, Lamy found him in the library holding her old backpack, the torn one from the ferry terminal. She froze. He smiled. "You kept this." She walked forward. "Please put it down." Sentimental. "It's mine. Everything here is technically your father's." The word father sounded wrong in his mouth. Lamy took the backpack from him. Jaeyoung-taek leaned closer. "You should be careful, Olamide. Men like my brother rescue what they cannot repair. Eventually, broken things embarrass them." She did not answer. She had learned that silence could be a locked door if held firmly enough. But that night, she cried quietly into her pillow, clutching the coat button in her fist until it left a circle in her palm. By 16, danger around the Nam family grew sharper. A convoy was attacked near Songdo. A school security route was compromised. A threatening photograph of Lamy leaving academy appeared in an envelope delivered to the mansion. G.I. Ryan did not sleep that night. He stood in his study with Jaeyoung-taek and 3 security chiefs, staring at the photograph as if hatred alone could burn it. "She must leave Korea," Jaeyoung-taek said. G.I. Ryan's face turned to stone.
No.
"They know she matters to you. Then increase security. They will use her to reach you. Or Teo. Or both." That was the argument that found the wound.
Dayu, his son.
His daughter. 2 children in one house, both already hurt by his failures. Jaeyoung-taek lowered his voice. "Send her abroad. Excellent school. Private guardians. Distance."
She survives.
Here, she becomes bait. G.I. Ryan resisted for 3 days. On the 4th, another threat arrived. This one included the route to Lamy's language academy. He signed the transfer papers that night. He wrote her a letter himself. Not through a secretary. Not through a lawyer. His own hand. "Lamy. This is not abandonment. This is distance until danger loses your shape. I am sending you where my enemies cannot reach easily. I will write. I will visit when it is safe. You are my daughter in every country, under every name, whether you stand in my house or beyond my sight. Do not mistake protection for rejection.
Appa.
He sealed it, gave it to Jiang Take for the courier packet. That was the last mistake he made as a father for many years. Because the letter Lamy received in Switzerland was not that letter. It was printed on legal stationery.
Cold.
Brief. Final. Olamide Sarfo, for your continued development and independent future, the Nam household has determined that your education and adult path should proceed separately from the family structure. Financial arrangements will continue through the designated trust until completion of study. Direct contact is discouraged for security and emotional stability. This chapter of family placement is now closed.
No appa.
No daughter.
No pramis.
Just placement. Like furniture moved to storage. Lamy read it 3 times in her dormitory room, while snow pressed white against the window. Then she folded it very carefully. She did not cry until morning. She wrote to Teo first. 1 letter, then a second, then a third during winter, asking if their father was angry, if she had done something wrong, if the coat button still made sense, because she no longer knew. No answer came. She did not know Jiang Take intercepted those 2. She did not know Teo read the first letter in secret and hid it because guilt made him crueler before it made him honest. She only knew silence. So she became excellent. Excellence was safer than needing anyone. She studied emergency medicine because the world had once stepped around her dying mother, and she wanted to become the person who stopped. She trained until panic sounded different to her than danger. She learned to read skin color, breathing, pulse, fear, hesitation. She became the calmest person in rooms where other people broke open. At 24, Olamide Sarfo no longer looked like the child under the fairy stairs. But in a small box she carried through every city, wrapped in cloth, was a single black coat button. The last proof that once, in a storm, someone had stopped. And the first wound that taught her stopping was not the same as staying. The ambulance doors closed with Nam Teo inside, but Olamide Sarfo did not climb in immediately. She stood in the courthouse emergency lobby, one gloved hand still holding Teo's discharge band, her eyes fixed on the code printed along its edge. The crowd around her buzzed with panic. Lawyers whispered into phones. Bodyguards formed a dark wall between the Nam family and the press outside. Courthouse responders gathered equipment. A judge's assistant stood near the marble column with both hands over her mouth. Nam Jiai saw none of it clearly. He saw only her. Lamy, not the girl under the fairy stairs. Not the child in his old coat. Not the daughter he had sent away with promises that somehow became silence. A woman now. Tall, composed, beautiful, and unreachable in a way that made his old power feel useless. Olamide, he said. She looked up. The name did not soften her. Mr. Nam, your son needs emergency transfer now. If you want to speak, speak while walking. The words were professional. That hurt more than anger. He followed as she moved toward the ambulance bay. Even in urgency, she did not rush blindly. She gave instructions to the paramedics with clean precision, checked Teo's response, questioned the courthouse physician, and demanded the discharge summary from the hospital staff member who had arrived with Teo that morning. The physician muttered, he was cleared for court attendance. Olamide turned so sharply the man stepped back. Cleared by whom? I only have the note. Then find the person who signed it. G.I. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Why? Olamide held up the wristband. This code does not match a standard discharge route. It links to a transfer request. A medical logistics transfer. Attorney Seo Rihi appeared beside them, breathless but controlled, her green suit still immaculate despite the chaos. That is what I asked you to review, she said quietly. Jai Ryan looked between them. You contacted her? Seo Rihi met his gaze without apology. Yes. Because someone inside Haywin Crown used your medical logistics channel to alter hospital records. Miss Sarfo was the only expert willing to review the discrepancies without being frightened by your surname. Olamide's mouth barely moved. Your surname frightened me, before your enemies did. The sentence struck him still. The ambulance team secured Teo. Olamide climbed in halfway, then paused. She looked at G.I. Ryan. You may ride if you can remain his father and not become a commander. His bodyguard stiffened. G.I. Ryan raised one hand. Then he climbed into the ambulance without argument. Inside, Teo's eyes fluttered. His breathing was shallow, fear breaking through the pride he had inherited too honestly. Olamide leaned over him.
Teo, listen toch me.
You're going to stay awake if you can. You're not testifying now. You are breathing. That is your only job. His eyes shifted toward her face. Recognition flickered. Not full recognition. Memory through pain. Lami, he whispered. She did not answer the name. Breathe. The ambulance pulled away from the courthouse. G.I. Ryan sat opposite his son, hands closed into fists on his knees. 15 years of blood, money, strategy, and violence had prepared him for enemies. None of it prepared him to watch the daughter he lost keep his son alive. At the secure hospital wing, chaos became controlled movement. Doctors took over, but only after Olamide delivered a rapid, precise summary that made even the senior physician listen. She identified the abnormal discharge issue, flagged the wristband code, and ordered the records sealed before anyone from Haywin Crown could correct them. When Teo disappeared behind emergency doors, G.I. Ryan finally turned to her. You are alive. Olamide removed her gloves slowly. That was never the question, Mr. Nam. His face tightened. Where have you been? Where I was sent. I sent you to be safe. She looked at him then. For the first time, the professional calm thinned enough to show something colder beneath. I was told the family had closed my chapter. G.I. Ryan went very still. What? She reached into her coat pocket and removed a folded paper, old enough that the creases had softened. She did not hand it to him. Not yet. I came today because Attorney Co asked for medical review, not because I wanted a reunion. Your son's hospital records were altered. His discharge timing was wrong. His wristband code was wrong. And someone wanted him in court fragile enough to collapse before he finished speaking. G.I. Ryan's grief sharpened into focus. Jiang take. Olamide did not confirm. She did not need to. Attorney Co joined them in the corridor. Teo was about to place your brother's name on record. Then recess was called. Then he collapsed. G.I. Ryan looked toward the closed medical doors. His son inside. His daughter standing outside. His brother somewhere nearby, wearing concern like a borrowed coat. Olamide turned to leave. G.I. Ryan stepped forward. Lami. She stopped, but did not turn fully. He lowered his voice. I looked for you. Her hand tightened around the folded letter.
No, she said.
You looked where your brother allowed you to look. Then she walked down the hospital corridor, white coat moving behind her, leaving G.I. Ryan with a truth that felt more dangerous than any charge inside the courthouse. The daughter he thought he had protected believed he had abandoned her. And maybe in the only way that mattered, he had. Teo woke before dawn. The secure hospital room was dim, lit by soft monitors and the pale blue edge of morning pressing against the windows. A guard stood outside the door. Attorney Co slept in a chair in the hallway with a file across her lap. G.I. Ryan had not left the hospital, though no one had seen him sleep. Olamide stood near the medication chart reviewing the latest notes. She had changed from her courthouse coat into a clean navy scrub jacket. Her curls were tied back more tightly now. The exhaustion on her face did not weaken her authority. If anything, it made her seem more untouchable. Teo opened his eyes and saw her. For several seconds, he simply stared. Then shame arrived before gratitude. You should have let someone else help, he whispered. Olamide did not look away from the chart. I did. They were wrong. His mouth tightened. Even half-conscious, he still knew how to sound like a nom. I remember you being less sharp. I remember you being less pale. That almost made him smile. Almost. Then the old memories entered the room. A girl at the breakfast table carefully pronouncing Korean honorifics while Teo rolled his eyes. A teenage boy leaving the garden when she joined him because he did not want to share silence. A letter from Switzerland folded inside his drawer, read until the edges softened, never answered because guilt had already begun and pride did not know how to apologize. Teo closed his eyes. You saved me. Yes. Why? That made her finally turn from the chart. He looked younger lying there.
No taler sut. No courtroom pride.
Just a frightened son with his father's jaw and his mother's grief still living somewhere beneath his skin. Because dying is not justice, she said. He swallowed. I was cruel to you. Yes. The answer was immediate. No comfort offered.
No grasfelie.
Teo breathed out unsteadily. I was a child. Yes. And that explains some of it. Yes. But not all of it. Olamide's expression changed by a fraction.
No.
Not all of it. He turned his face toward the ceiling. When my mother died, everyone in the house became careful around me. Father became silent. Uncle Jayangtaek became useful. Then you arrived wearing my father's coat, and everyone moved around you, like you were fragile. I was fragile. I know that now. But back then I thought you had stolen the only tenderness left in the house. The admission hung in the room. Olamide stood very still. Teo looked at her, eyes glassy with fever and regret. I hated you for surviving something loudly enough that people could see it. My grief was quiet. Yours had a story. Her throat tightened, but her voice remained steady. I did not ask to be a story. I know. Do you? He closed his eyes. I kept your letter. That made her stop breathing for a second. The first one, she asked. Yes. And you never replied.
No.
Why? Because I read it and realized you still thought I might be kind. The answer entered her softly, painfully. She remembered that first winter abroad. Snow against the window. Her handwriting careful. Her questions hidden under polite phrases. Was father angry? Was Teo well? Did the garden still bloom in spring? Did the family still keep the blue dishes? She had waited 3 weeks. Then 3 months. Then wrote again. Then again. By the 3rd winter she stopped. I waited, she said. After the 3rd winter I stopped.
Teo, se face tu instead.
I'm sorry. She looked down at the chart. Do not spend energy on apology right now. Your body is still deciding whether to trust the room. He gave a weak laugh that turned into a cough. She helped him sit slightly, adjusted the monitor lead, and checked his breathing with practiced calm. When the coughing passed, he whispered, Before I collapsed, I was going to say more. Olamide looked at him. About your uncle?
Teo nodded.
I overheard him. 2 nights before the hearing. He told someone to move the hospital records before the court subpoena expanded. He said if I made it through testimony, succession would become impossible. Her eyes sharpened. Succession. He wants control of Haewon Crown if father is convicted or medically incapacitated. But he needed me discredited. If I looked unstable, confused, medically compromised, then your testimony becomes easy to attack.
Teo nodded.
He said I was always weaker than expected. Olamide looked at the young man in the bed, the boy who had wounded her, the son who had been wounded too. Your uncle is very good at making children believe pain is proof they are defective. Teo stared at her. Then tears slipped quietly into his hair. He did not cover them. That, more than anything, told her something had changed. At the doorway, G.I. Ryan stood unseen for several seconds before stepping back into the hall. He had spent years commanding rooms. For once, he let his children speak without him. And the silence outside the hospital room became the first honest thing he had given them. By noon, Nam G.I. Ryan had stopped asking whether his brother was guilty. He began asking how much damage had been done. Attorney Seo Ri-hee spread the documents across a private hospital conference table. Olamide stood beside the medical records board. G.I. Ryan sat at the head of the table, but for once the room did not orbit him alone. It orbited evidence. The wristband code, Olamide said, tapping the enlarged printout, was linked to a transfer protocol. That means Teo's discharge was not just medical. It was routed through a logistics authorization. Seo Ri-hee slid another document forward. Haewon Crown Medical Logistics Division processed that transfer. The proxy signature is hidden under a secondary approval chain. G.I. Ryan read the name.
Nam Gyeong-taek.
He did not react outwardly. Olamide continued. Teo's condition was not managed safely. His prior episode should have required observation. Instead, he was cleared for court under a summary note that minimized symptoms and omitted 2 warning markers. Seo Ri-hee added, if he collapsed before completing testimony, opposing counsel could argue his earlier statements were medically unreliable. G.I. Ryan's voice was quiet. And if he died? The room went still. Olamide looked at him. I do not think death in the lobby was the preferred outcome. Preferred, he repeated. Her eyes did not soften. I think the goal was silence, confusion, and discrediting. But whoever arranged it was willing to risk his life. That was worse. A man who tried to kill could at least be understood as a murder. A man who risked a young life because it was convenient was something colder.
Yiriyun stood.
Call him. Attorney Seo's brows drew together.
Now.
Yes. Chairman Nam, if you confront him before court. I did not say court. 20 minutes later, Nam Jayang-taek entered the private conference room with 2 attorneys and the expression of a man prepared to be offended. He paused when he saw Olamide. His eyes moved over her white coat, her badge, her composed face. Then he smiled faintly. A remarkable return, he said. The lost child comes back wearing credentials. Olamide did not answer. Ryan looked at the attorneys. Leave. One attorney began. Our client. Ryan's bodyguard opened the door from outside. The attorney reconsidered. Jayang-taek remained standing as the lawyers left. When the door closed, Ryan placed the wristband record on the table. Explain. Jayang-taek looked at it briefly. A medical document. Your proxy approval. My office handles many administrative matters. Teo nearly died. My nephew is fragile. He always has been. Ryan's hand closed slowly. Olamide watched him restrain himself. Jayang-taek noticed too, and pressed where he always had. You let sentiment cloud the matter. First with your son, now again with her. He nodded toward Olamide. The girl from the fairy stairs returns and suddenly every record becomes conspiracy. Ryan's eyes turned black. Choose your next words carefully. Jayang-taek laughed softly. Brother, you dragged that street girl into our bloodline once. Now she returns to destroy your son with accusations dressed as medicine. The temperature in the room changed. Olamide said nothing. She had heard worse from quieter mouths. But Ryan stepped forward. Not fast. That would have been easier to dismiss as rage. Slowly, like judgment taking physical form. No, he said. She returned to save the son you were willing to spend. For the first time, Jayang-taek's smile flickered. Ryan continued. You poisoned Teo against her when he was grieving. You poisoned my house with whispers. You sent my daughter away with another man's words in my name. And now you poison my son's care because his testimony endangered you. I protected the family. You protected your inheritance. The family needed clean lines. You brought in a foreign child while your wife was barely buried. You made Teo compete with charity. Ryan's face tightened, but the blow did not land the way it once might have, because now he saw the architecture. The brother who had stood beside his grief had also shaped it. You told my son she stole my love, Ryan said. Jayang-taek's silence answered. You told my daughter she had been dismissed. Still silence. Olamide's hand moved to the pocket where the old letter rested. Ryan saw it. Something inside him broke, quietly. Not in front of his brother. Not for performance. But enough. He turned to Olamide. May I see it? She hesitated, then removed the folded legal letter and placed it in his hand. Ryan opened it. He read the first line, then the second. By the third, his breathing changed. This chapter of family placement is now closed. His hand trembled once. Jayang-taek looked away. That small movement was confession. Ryan folded the letter carefully, as if even the false thing deserved gentleness, because she had carried it for 15 years. I wrote to my daughter, he said, voice low. You sent a dismissal to a stranger. Jayang-taek's face hardened. She was never your daughter. Ryan looked up. She was more my daughter than you were ever my brother. The words struck deep. Jayang-taek finally lost the last polish from his expression. You think court will save you? You think she will? Blood wins, Ryan. Blood always returns to claim what sentiment wasted. Olamide spoke then.
Her voice was calm. No.
Blood only wins in families too frightened to call poison by its name. Jayang-taek looked at her with hatred. But this time, she was not 15. She was not standing in a library clutching a torn backpack. She was not waiting for a father's letter. She was a woman with evidence, training, and a room finally forced to hear her. G.I. Ryan turned to his bodyguard. Escort my brother out. Inform Attorney Seo to prepare the court filings. Every record, every letter, every medical transfer. Jiang Taek laughed as the door opened. You will regret choosing her again. G.I. Ryan did not look away from Olamide. No, he said. My regret is that I stopped choosing her where she could see it. Jiang Taek was taken out. The room emptied around the truth he left behind. For a long moment, G.I. Ryan and Olamide stood in silence. Then he held out the false letter. She took it back. His voice was rougher than before. I wrote to you. Her face did not change, but her eyes did. I needed you to check whether the love arrived. He bowed his head. Not as a mafia boss. Not as the patriarch of Haewon Crown. As a father late to the simplest lesson. You are right. Outside the conference room, hospital machines hummed softly. Teo slept under guard. Court waited. Enemies moved. The family name shook. But inside that room, the oldest wound finally had a witness. And Olamide Sarfo, once sent away by a lie, understood that returning had not made her weaker. It had brought the poison into light. Olamide Sarfo did not return to the Nam family to be protected. She made that clear before sunset. G.I. Ryan had arranged a secure suite inside the hospital's private wing, away from reporters, away from courthouse staff, away from Jiang Taek's lawyers and the family members who had suddenly remembered how to say her name. 2 guards stood at the entrance. Another 2 waited by the elevator. A medical team had been assigned to Teo. Attorney Seo Ri-hee had converted the adjoining room into a war office, documents covering every table. It was exactly the kind of protection G.I. Ryan understood. Controlled doors. Controlled movement.
Controlled risk.
Olamide hated how familiar it felt. She stood near the window overlooking Incheon's night skyline, arms folded beneath her white clinical coat. The city lights glimmered below like scattered glass. Behind her, G.I. Ryan stood with a false dismissal letter in one hand, and the face of a man who had discovered his own love had been intercepted. You should stay under my protection, he said.
No.
The answer came quickly. Too quickly for him to pretend there was room for negotiation. Olamide. She turned. The name sounded different from him now. Not like command. Not like memory alone. Like regret had finally learned pronunciation. Still, she did not soften. Protection from you once meant silence, distance, decisions made above my head, and a legal letter telling me my family placement was closed. I did not send that letter. But you created the world where someone else could. He absorbed the words without defending himself. That was new. 15 years ago, G.I. Ryan would have explained danger. He would have listed enemies, threats, routes, reports, the things men in his world used as proof that emotion must obey strategy. Tonight, he only looked at her and said, You are right. Olamide's hand tightened slightly around the edge of her sleeve. It was easier when he was arrogant. Arrogant men gave wounds somewhere simple to live. This humbled version of him made the old grief shift uncomfortably. I wrote to you, he said quietly. Every month at first. Then every season. Jiang Taek told me your guardians believed contact made you unstable. He said you were adjusting better, without the house pulling you backward. A humorless laugh left her. Unstable. I should have gone myself. Yes. The word landed.
No cruelty. No declaración.
Just truth. G.I. Ryan bowed his head once. I thought distance meant survival. Olamide looked back toward the city. I survived. I know. No, she said, voice quieter now. You know I am alive. That is not the same thing. Silence filled the room. Then she reached into the small leather pouch she carried and removed the old black coat button. G.I. Ryan's breath caught. You kept it. I kept proof that one night someone stopped. She rolled the button between her fingers. For years, I thought that was enough. Then I learned stopping is not the same as staying. G.I. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were wet, though no tear fell. I saved a child and thought that made me a father. Olamide's expression trembled once before she controlled it. You loved me like a man giving orders. You never checked whether the love arrived. The line changed him. Not loudly. G.I. Ryan had faced betrayal, bullets, courtrooms, and death. None of them made him look as wounded as that sentence. He folded the false letter carefully and placed it on the table between them. "What do you want from me now?" Olamide looked at the letter, then at the hospital door beyond which Teo slept under observation. "I will testify as a medical expert. I will explain the altered records, the wristband route, the discharge risk, and the emergency pattern I witnessed. Yes, but not as your lost daughter."
His jaw tightened.
"Not as your redemption." He lowered his gaze. "Not as a weapon in your family war." He nodded slowly. "I understand. Do you?" "I am trying to." She studied him for a long moment. Trying was not enough, but it was more honest than promising. Olamide picked up the false letter and returned it to her pouch. "I came here because your son was dying and because the records were wrong. I am staying until the truth is spoken. After that, I decide where I stand." G.I. Ryan stepped aside from the door. Not blocking, not commanding, making room. "Then I will stand behind your truth," he said, "and not in front of it." Olamide looked at him. For the first time since the courthouse lobby, the coldness in her eyes shifted. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But recognition. The old man had finally learned that love could not arrive as an order and expect to be received as care. Outside, footsteps passed in the corridor. Inside, father and daughter stood separated by 15 years, one false letter, and a button from a storm. Neither moved closer, but neither walked away. The next morning, Incheon International Justice Hall was surrounded before sunrise. Reporters filled the front plaza. Police vehicles blocked the lower entrance. Haewon Crown security stood in dark formation along the private corridor, but their authority felt different now. Less like command, more like damage control. Inside the courtroom, Nam Jayang-taek sat with his attorneys, polished again. Face composed, suit flawless. Only his eyes betrayed him. They followed Olamide the moment she entered. She wore a tailored white coat over navy clinical attire, her curls pulled back, her trauma badge visible at her chest. She did not look toward the family benches. She did not look at G.I. Ryan. She walked to the witness stand like a woman entering surgery. Attorney Seo Ri-hee began gently. "Please state your name and professional role." Olamide Sarfo, emergency nurse practitioner, trauma and acute response specialist. "You were present in the courthouse lobby when Nam Teo collapsed?" "Yes." "And based on your assessment, was his collapse consistent with ordinary stress?"
"No."
A murmur moved through the room. Olamide explained clinically. The abnormal discharge timing. The warning markers omitted from the summary. The wristband code tied to a transfer protocol. The medical logistics route connected to Haewon Crown's internal system. The danger of clearing Teo for testimony without proper observation. She did not dramatize. That made it more devastating. Every sentence was a clean stone placed on Jayang-taek's chest. His attorney rose. "Ms. Sarfo, is it not true that you have personal history with the Nam family?" "Yes." "Were you not adopted by Nam G.I. Ryan?" "Yes." "And later removed from the household?" Olamide looked at him. "I was sent abroad under false communication." The attorney smiled thinly. "So you carry emotional resentment." "I carry medical evidence." A ripple moved through the courtroom. Attorney Seo stepped forward. "Your Honor, the defense submits intercepted correspondence and courier records recovered from Nam Jayang-taek's office archive." Jayang-taek's head turned sharply. Seo continued. "These documents show that letters written by Nam G.I. Ryan to Olamide Sarfo were never delivered. Instead, a legal dismissal letter was sent under altered authority." The courtroom shifted. G.I. Ryan sat still, but his hand tightened once on the table. Then the screen at the front of the courtroom flickered on. Nam Teo appeared by video from the hospital, pale, seated upright, monitored, but alive. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Nam, are you able to testify?" Teo's voice was weak, but clear. "Yes, Your Honor." Attorney Seo approached the screen. "Before your collapse, you testified that you saw your uncle's proxy authorization connected to the medical logistics records. Is that correct?" "Yes." Did you overhear any conversation regarding those records? Teo closed his eyes briefly. Then opened them. 2 nights before the hearing, I heard my uncle tell someone to move the hospital records before the subpoena expanded. He said if I made it through testimony, succession would become impossible. Jae-taek stood. This is nonsense. He is drugged. Teo looked at him through the screen.
No.
For the first time, Uncle, I am clear. The room went silent. Then Teo added, and I owe Olamide Sarfo the truth. I treated her cruelly when we were children because I believed what you told me. That she was temporary. That she had taken my father's love. That she was something rescued, not someone chosen. Olamide did not look away from the screen. Teo's voice shook. I was wrong. Jae-taek lost control. Not completely. Just enough. He turned toward the court and said, this is what happens when sentiment replaces blood. That stray Gi Ryan dragged home has poisoned my nephew against his own family. The word struck the room like a slap. Stray. For 1 second, Olamide was 13 again in a mansion hallway, clutching an old backpack while a polished man smiled at her like she was dirt under silk rugs. Then Gi Ryan stood. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He simply looked at his brother and said, that stray saved my heir while my blood tried to bury him. The courtroom froze. Even the judge paused before ordering silence. Jae-taek's face strained. Because in that single sentence, Gi Ryan had done what he should have done 15 years earlier. He chose her where everyone could see. Attorney Seo submitted the final emergency motion. Jae-taek's detention was ordered pending investigation into evidence tampering, medical endangerment, obstruction, and financial conspiracy tied to Haewon Crown's logistics division. As officers approached, Jae-taek looked at Olamide one last time. Hatred burned in his eyes. But it had nowhere to go. She had outgrown every room he once used to shrink her. When court adjourned, Olamide stepped down from the witness stand and walked past the family benches. Relatives who once treated her like a temporary inconvenience lowered their eyes. Some wanted to apologize. None found courage quickly enough. Gi Ryan watched her pass. He did not reach for her. He had promised to stand behind her truth. So he did. And this time, Olamide did not leave the courthouse as the girl sent away by a lie. She left as the woman who brought the lie to court and made it answer under oath. Teo asked to see Olamide after the hearing. She almost said no, not because she hated him. Hatred would have been simpler. But old wounds had a way of waking when the person who caused them finally arrived with apology in his hands, asking for a place to put it. She entered his hospital room just before evening. Teo sat propped against pillows, thinner than he wanted to look, one hand resting near the monitor wires. The arrogance from the courtroom had been stripped away by illness, testimony, and truth. He looked like a young man who had survived himself and did not yet know what to do next. You can sit, he said. Olamide raised one eyebrow. In your hospital room? A weak smile touched his mouth. I'm practicing not sounding like a nom. Ambitious. Painful. She sat in the chair beside the bed. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Teo reached toward the drawer beside him and removed an envelope. It was old, worn at the folds. Olamide recognized her own handwriting before he spoke. Her chest tightened. You kept it. The first letter. I wrote 3. I know. She looked at him sharply. He lowered his head. Uncle gave me the first. I think he wanted me to mock it. Or destroy it. I did neither. I read it. And the others? I found them years later in a locked archive after I started questioning him. By then, I was too ashamed to answer. Olamide took the envelope slowly. Inside was a letter written by a girl trying very hard not to sound abandoned. She remembered every line.
Dear,
I hope your health is good. Does the garden still have the stone lantern near the pond? Please tell father I am studying hard. Please tell him I still have the coat button. If I did something wrong, you can tell me. Olamide folded it back carefully. I waited, she said. I know.
No, tayo.
You know now. Waiting is different while it is happening. His eyes reddened. I'm sorry. She looked at him for a long time. You are a grieving child. That does not excuse me.
No.
But it explains where the first poison entered. He swallowed. I thought father loved you more because he was gentle with you. Olamide's laugh was soft and sad. He was not gentle enough.
No.
Teo looked toward the window. I wanted my mother back. Then you arrived, and suddenly there was someone else in the house who needed protecting. I hated that your pain made sense to people. Mine just made me difficult. Olamide let the silence hold that confession. Then she said, You are allowed to grieve your mother. He looked at her. You were not allowed to make me pay for it. He nodded. I know. The monitor beeped softly. For once, no one rushed to fill the quiet. Teo looked at the letter again. Can I ask something I may not deserve? You can ask. Could I call you Nina one day? The word sat between them. Older sister. Not by much in age, but by survival, by truth, by the strange order of wounds. Olamide looked down at her hands. Her anger did not vanish. The past did not fold itself neatly because a young man was sorry in a hospital bed. But something in her softened enough to breathe.
One day is honest, she said.
Teo's eyes filled. Start there. He nodded quickly, as if afraid too much gratitude would ruin it. At the doorway, G.I. Ryan stood unseen again. This time, Olamide knew he was there.
She did not call him in.
He did not enter. For once, he understood that not every family moment required the father to supervise it. He stood in the hallway and listened to the two children he had failed both begin speaking in a room where truth did not need his permission. And for the first time in 15 years, the Nam family did not feel like a house built on silence. It felt like a wound finally learning where the air was. Months later, Haywin Crown Group changed its shape. Not enough to become innocent. No empire built in shadow became clean because one villain fell. But the medical logistics division was separated from family control and placed under independent oversight. Giant Take's legal network collapsed piece by piece. Hidden accounts surfaced. Proxy authorizations were revoked. Men who had once bowed to him began describing him as difficult, isolated, and never fully trusted. Cowards always rewrote loyalty after arrests. Olamide returned to emergency medicine. She preferred the honesty of trauma rooms. People arrived bleeding, panicking, breathless, collapsing. No one had time to pretend a family was healthy while poisoning its own children. But she did not leave the past untouched. With court settlements, independent donors, and funding G.I. Ryan provided without attaching his name, she opened a charitable emergency response program for abandoned children, undocumented families, and vulnerable patients afraid of powerful institutions. She named it the Fairy Light Clinic. Not after Nam G.I. Ryan. Not after Haywin Crown. After the place where she had almost disappeared, and the light that had found her before it was too late. The opening ceremony took place near the restored Incheon Ferry District on a clear spring afternoon. The clinic was modest but beautiful. Warm wood, glass, clean white walls, blue signage, a children's waiting area painted with waves and lanterns. G.I. Ryan stood in the audience. Not on stage. That mattered. He wore a dark suit, older now in ways even power could not hide. Beside him stood Teo with a cane, recovering slowly, his pride no longer sharpened into cruelty. Olamide spoke briefly. She thanked the nurses first, then the interpreters, then the social workers, then the volunteers who would meet frightened people at doors before paperwork could push them away. G.I. Ryan listened with his hands folded in front of him. Once he would have believed funding the building was the important part. Now he understood that the important part was letting her decide what the building meant. After the ribbon was cut, Teo approached a small group of donors with Olamide beside him. His voice was careful but warm. This is my sister, Dr. Sarfo. She saves people who still deserve the chance to become better. Olamide looked at him sideways. Too much.
He winced.
A little.
A lot.
I'm learning. I'll allow it today.
Tayo smiled.
Not the old sharp smile. A real one. Later, near the clinic entrance, G.I. Ryan found Olamide standing beneath the sign, watching children enter with their parents. Some were nervous, some tired, some held documents in plastic bags. Some spoke Korean uncertainly. All were welcomed before they were questioned. G.I. Ryan stopped beside her. I brought something. She looked at him. From his pocket, he removed a small velvet pouch. Inside was a black coat button. Olamide's breath caught. Her hand went to her own pouch instinctively. I thought I had the only one. It came from the same coat, he said. I kept the other after you left. Her eyes lifted to his. For 15 years, she had believed she was the only one carrying proof. But he had carried one too. I did not forget you, he said. Her voice was quiet. Forgetting was not the only thing that hurt. I know. He closed his hand around the button, then opened it again, offering it to her. I saved a child once and thought that made me a father. You saved my son and taught me fatherhood is what happens after rescue. Olamide looked at the button, then at him. The wind moved softly through the clinic flags. For a long moment, the words stayed behind her teeth. Too old, too young, too painful,
Too wanted.
Then she took the button from his palm and whispered.
Appa.
G.I. Ryan closed his eyes. One tear fell before he could command it back. He did not reach for her. Not until she stepped closer. Then, gently, carefully, as if embracing something he had no right to hold too tightly, he wrapped his arms around his daughter. Near the clinic doors, Teo looked away to give them privacy, smiling through tears he would deny later if asked. The Fairy Light Clinic opened that day with no grand family speech, no Mafia spectacle, no performance of perfect healing. Only a woman who had once been homeless, welcoming others inside before the world could step over them. 15 years ago, Nam Gi Ryan carried a freezing girl out of the cold. 15 years later, she walked into court and carried his dying son back to life. Then she did something even harder. She saved the family he never knew was still bleeding.